Maya Brooks stood outside the crystal cell and felt her heart beating fast in her chest like drums in the night. Alien Queen moved inside the chamber with steps that made no sound on the smooth floor, and her silver skin glowed softly in the dim lights that hung from above. Maya had been a soldier for only 6 months, and this was her first real job on the space station called Sentinel, but nobody told her she would be watching an alien. Prisoner tonight, Captain Stevens had called her into his office just 3 hours ago, and his face looked tired and old when he spoke to her about the assignment. He said, "Maya, you will guard the Alien Queen tonight, and you must not talk to her unless she talks first, and you must not sleep, and you must not make any mistakes now." Maya watched the tall woman pace back and forth inside her prison, and everything about her seemed wrong and beautiful at the same time. An alien had long pointed ears that swept back from her head, and eyes that shone purple like deep space, and when she turned to look at Maya, the young soldier felt ice run down her back. The queen was not the worst part of this duty. In the corner of the cell a dragon lay curled up like a giant cat made of midnight, and scales and steam rose from its nose with every breath it took. The creature had eyes that matched the queen exactly, and those eyes never looked away from Maya, not even for 1 second in all the hours she stood guard. Thraxus was the dragon name, according to the file Maya read before her shift, and he was the size of 3 horses put together, and his scales were so dark they seemed to eat. The light around them, Maya kept her hand near her weapon on her belt, even though she knew the energy field between them would stop any attack for hours past, slowly like honey dripping from a jar, and Maya tried not to think about how strange this all felt then. The alien queen stopped walking and turned to face Maya, directly with those purple eyes that saw too much. "You were afraid," the queen said, and her voice sounded like music mixed with thunder, and it made Maya think of rivers and storms at the same time. Maya tried to keep her face blank like they taught her in training, and she said, "I am not supposed to talk with you unless you start the conversation." The queen smiled, and her teeth were just a little too sharp to be human, and she said, "I know what your captain told you, little soldier, but do you know why I am here in this cage?" Maya answered carefully, because the file she read was not very clear about many things, and she said, "You are a prisoner because of the war." The queen laughed, but it was not a happy sound, and she asked what war, and said, "Your people and my people never met before 3 weeks ago, so how can there be a war between you?" As she pointed at the dragon and continued, "Yet here I am locked up like an animal in Thraxus. My friend and guardian is kept from the skies where he belongs." Maya remembered what the report said, and she told the queen, "You attacked a human ship, and 17 people died in that attack." For the first time, real anger crossed the alien face, sharp and cold. Like a knife made of ice, the queen stepped closer to the barrier and said, "We attacked nobody, and we came because we heard a distress call from that same ship asking for help." She continued, "When we arrived, your warships were already shooting at us without any warning. We only fought back to protect ourselves." The queen voice grew softer and sadder as she said, "Those 17 people died because someone on your side decided. We were enemies before we ever spoke one single word to each other." Maya felt her mouth go dry, because this was not what the official report said at all. She told the queen, "Honestly, I do not have information about that in my files." An alien woman looked at Maya for a long moment and then said something that made the young soldier blood turn to ice in her veins. "You are new here and young, and they gave you this job because if something goes wrong, you will not be missed by the important people." But the queen continued, "You have good eyes that show kindness in them, so I will give you a warning to keep you safe." The dragon stood up on all 4 legs, and the temperature in the hallway seemed to drop lower and lower with each second. "A fleet is coming," the queen said calmly. "And when my people arrive, this station will have only one choice to make." She explained, "Either you release me without fighting, or everyone on this station will burn and die, and there will be nothing left but ashes and metal." Queen looked sad when she added, "I tell you this because I do not want you to die, young one, and you remind me of someone I loved and lost." Maya's hand tightened on her weapon, and she asked, "Is that a threat against us?" "No, child," the queen replied. "It's just the truth, and my people do not start wars, but we always finish them when others force us to fight." The alien walked back toward her dragon and pressed her forehead against the great beast head, and she said, "Sleep. Now if you can, because you will need all your strength for what comes." Next, Maya stood frozen in place, unable to move or think clearly for many long minutes. She reached for her communication device, and her finger hung over the button that would call for help. If she reported this conversation, they would move the queen somewhere else and ask her hard questions and maybe do worse things. But if she stayed quiet and the queen spoke the truth about the coming fleet, then everyone on the station might die. The dragon eyes met Maya one more time, and she could swear she saw understanding there, and intelligence, and a warning. Maya lowered her hand without pressing the button. 3 more hours until her shift ended, and 3 hours to decide if she should trust an alien queen who might destroy humanity or might be the only one who could save them. All the young soldier took a deep breath and kept watching and waiting as the minutes crawled by, slower than she ever thought time could move. The next night, Maya signed up for the same guard duty again, and everyone thought she was crazy, but Captain Stevens approved it because most guards did not want to go near the alien prisoner. When Maya arrived at her post, the queen stood waiting by the energy barrier like she knew Maya would come back. "You did not tell anyone about our talk last night," the queen said, and it was not a question but a statement of fact. Maya replied, "No, I did not tell them." The queen tilted her head and asked why. Not Maya thought about lying, but something told her the alien would know, so she said, "Because 17 people died." And the official story does not make any sense. At Al, she continued, "Colony transport ships have no weapons. So why would your ship need to defend itself unless someone shot at you first?" The queen expression stayed calm, but her eyes showed respect, and she said, "You think like a soldier, and that will get you killed, but it might also save your life." She gestured for Maya to come closer and said, "Come here, child, and let me tell you some things you need to know." Maya walked toward the barrier slowly and carefully while the dragon Thraxus watched, but did not move from his corner. "What? Do you know about something called the Void Accords?" the queen asked. Maya shook her head and said, "Nothing at all. Should I know about it?" The queen began to explain that 300 years ago, her people signed a treaty with 12 other alien races. She said, "We agreed to keep balance in this part of space and to stop any one species from becoming too powerful through violence and war." The queen continued, "Humans were not part of that agreement because back then you were still fighting each other on Earth and had not yet learned to travel between stars." She went on, "But now humans have built ships that can move faster than light and weapons that can crack entire planets into pieces." Queen voice grew harder as she said, "And your people are spreading out fast and taking over star systems without caring who was there before." Maya felt cold inside, and she said, "The colony worlds we built were never empty." The queen interrupted, "And your scout ships simply did not see the signs of civilization because they were not looking for ones like mine." She pressed her palm against the energy field, and it hummed with power as she said, "We tried to make peaceful contact with your government 6 months ago," the queen explained, "but your leaders classified all records of our meeting and declared us a dangerous threat and began preparing for war." Maya protested, "That is impossible. We would have heard something about it, would you?" The queen asked and said, "How much does a junior officer like you know about secret military operations?" She continued, "You humans are good soldiers and brave and fierce, but you are like children playing with weapons you do not understand." The queen explained that the distress call from that transport ship was bait set as a trap. She said, "Your commanders knew my people would respond because we always help those in need, and they wanted to capture me, to study me, and learn our weaknesses before the war truly begins." Maya's mind raced with thoughts, and she said, "So you are telling me this was all planned from the start?" "Yes," the queen replied. "The ambush was planned carefully, but my capture was not supposed to happen this way." She continued, "I came to that ship because I hoped to stop the killing, but I failed, and now my daughter leads the fleet that is coming, and she will not be as forgiving as I am." Maya asked, "Your daughter?" The queen's face showed pain for just a moment, and she said, "Commander Lyrillith is young by our standards, only 87 years old." She went on, "Lyrillith saw humans kill her father during our first peaceful contact attempt, when we approached with no weapons and open hands." The queen's voice cracked slightly as she finished, "My daughter will not offer mercy a second time. after what your people did, Maya felt weight of her weapon on her hip and asked, "How long until the fleet arrives here to days?" The queen answered, "Maybe 3 at most." She looked directly into Maya's and said, "I tell you all this because you can still escape and save yourself," the queen explained. "There are civilian transport ships on this station that leave every day, and you could get on one and go far away," Maya said, "and go where if what you say is true, then nowhere in human space will be safe. Then stay and help me stop the killing." "Before it starts," the queen said in a voice barely louder than a whisper, she explained, "there is a communication system in Section 7 that has restricted access, and if I could send one message to Lyrilleth, I could call off the attack," the queen finished, "but I need someone on the outside who can help me reach that system." Maya stepped backward and said, "You are asking me to betray my own people." "Kithono," the queen said firmly, "I am asking you to save lives, including your own Shai," explained your commanders. "Will never let me go free, and when my fleet arrives, they will try to use me as a bargaining tool." Queen continued, "And when that fails, they will execute me to deny Lyrilleth the satisfaction, and thousands will die in the battle that follows." She said, "This station will be destroyed completely, and the war will spread to every human colony in this entire sector of space." Behind the queen, the dragon Thraxus lifted his great head and made the low, mournful sound that Maya felt in her bones. Maya said, "I need time to think about this. "You have until tomorrow night," the queen replied, and then said, "Choose wisely, little soldier, because some doors once opened can never be closed." Again Maya walked away with her mind spinning, and spent the rest of that night and all the next day searching through computer files. She should not have been reading it. Took 6 hours of careful searching, but she finally found the truth buried deep in classified military reports that made her sick to her stomach. First contact had happened 8 months ago, not 6, and a human ship called Dawn Promise had met an alien vessel near a distant star system. Alien crew had sent what translators said was a friendly greeting message, but instead of responding peacefully, Admiral Burke had ordered his crew to open fire. His reason, according to the report, was preemptive elimination of potential threat based on superior alien technology. 17 aliens had died in that attack, while the human ship took almost no damage. Before the alien ship ran away, 3 months later, a colony transport near the same area broadcast a distress call saying their engines had failed and 43 civilians were on board. The rescue ships arrived. They found an alien vessel already there, and according to the identification codes, it was the Queen's ship trying to help, but the rescue fleet opened fire anyway without asking questions, and the confusion and fighting the transport got caught in the middle, and 17 humans died. Queen had surrendered when her ship weapons stopped working because she did not want more humans to die. The official story that Maya had been told was completely false. She closed the computer files with hands that shook and felt her whole world turning upside down. Everything she believed about her duty and her service was built on lies. Maya's communication device buzzed and made her jump in her seat because she'd been lost in dark thoughts about lies and death. Captain Stevens wanted to see her immediately in his office. When she arrived, she found him studying battle maps with 2 officers she had never seen before, and they wore the uniform markings of the Intelligence Division. Lieutenant Brooks, the captain said without any greeting, "These are Agents Cole and Martinez, and they have questions about your talks with the prisoner." Maya felt her blood turn to ice in her veins, and she asked, "What kind of questions, Sajan?" Cole stepped forward, and she was a woman with sharp features and eyes that cut like knives. Cole said, "We have been watching the security feeds near the detention area, and yesterday at 3:47 in the morning, you had a long conversation with the Alianche." Asked, "What did you discuss with the prisoner?" Maya lied as smoothly as she could and said she was trying to get information about our station defenses, but I did not tell her anything, Sergeant. Martinez moved to block the doorway and asked, "Did the alien mention anything about a fleet coming?" Maya hesitated for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Martinez said, "We have picked up strange transmissions in a language we cannot understand on a quantum frequency we can barely even detect," he continued. "But we know they are coming, and the alien queen is like a signal beacon calling her people to attack us." Here Maya heard herself saying she wants to talk and negotiate with us if you would just listen to what she has to say. Cole interrupted sharply and said, "We do not negotiate with terrorists who kill our people, Shay." Continued, "The alien attacked our ships and murdered innocent humans, and she will be put on trial and executed as a war. A criminal." Cole smiled in a way that made Maya feel cold and said, "But first she is going to help us learn about their technology, and we have specialists coming tomorrow." To begin enhanced questioning, Maya understood what enhanced questioning meant and felt. Said Captain Stevens said, "You are dismissed, Lieutenant, and we will assign a new guard to watch the detention level because you have had too much contact with the prisoner." Maya saluted like a robot and left the office with her heart pounding. Queen had said 2 days until the fleet arrived tomorrow. They would start torturing her for information, and when the fleet came and found their queen hurt and broken, there would be no chance for peace. Maya walked toward her quarters, but then kept going past her door and down to levels through maintenance corridors. She had memorized weeks ago. She reached Section 7, where the restricted communication array was kept. A single guard stood watch, and his name was Kyle Davis, and Maya knew him from the recreation room where he played card games. She walked up casually and said, "Hey Kyle, the captain needs someone to check the emergency transmission beacons. And can you unlock the array room for me?" Kyle looked at her for a moment and then shrugged his shoulders and said, "Sure thing, Lieutenant, but you need to sign the access log." Maya signed her real name because there was no point in hiding now. If this went wrong inside the array room, massive transmitters hummed with barely contained energy that could send messages across light years of empty space. Maya sat at the control panel with her fingers hanging over the keys. This was the moment where everything would change forever. She thought about the 17 people who died caught between two sides who refused to talk to each other. Thought about the queen dead husband and the daughter who lost her father. She thought about the thousands who would die if this war continued. Maya began typing and following the instructions Queen had whispered to her during their second conversation. The message was short and simple in a mathematical language. The Queen said, "All her people understood, Mother. Lives and seeks to talk, and these are the coordinates." And Commander Liraleth, "Your mother asks you to honor your father memory and choose peace." Instead of Warmaha pressed the transmit button. Alarms screamed immediately, and she knew they would because any unauthorized use of the array would trigger every security system on the station. She stood calmly, with her hands raised high as armed guards came running in with weapons pointed at her. Agent Cole was with them, and her face was twisted with rage. She shouted, "What have you done?" Maya said quietly, "What I had to do to save everyone on this station." Cole ordered the guards to arrest Maya and take her to the brigas. They put restraints on her wrists. Maya felt strangely calm because she had made her choice, and there was no going back. Now the brig cell was small and cold with metal walls that reflected her face back at her captain. Stevens came to see her alone. After dismissing the guards outside, he stood looking at her through the energy barrier, and his face showed an expression Maya could not read. "They want to court-martial you?" he said finally. "And treason during wartime carries the death penalty." Brooks. Maya said, "Yes, sir. I know. Agent Cole wants to execute you immediately to make an example." Stevens continued, "But I convinced them to wait until after the alien fleet arrives," he added. "I told them your trial might be useful for propaganda purposes." Maya met his eyes and said, "Thank you, Sir Stevens," rubbed his tired face and said, "Do not thank me yet, because you may have doomed this entire station to destruction." He brought up a hologram display and said, "The alien fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel 30 minutes ago, and they will arrive here in 6 hours." Stevens continued, "We are outnumbered 5 ships to 1, and their weapons technology is decades more advanced than anything we have." Maya said, "They did not come here to fight us, not anymore, because I sent a message offering peace." Stevens replied, "I know what you sent because we decoded it," and the alien response came back 10 minutes later. He asked, "Do you want to know what their message said?" Maya nodded. Stevens read from the display and said, "Proof of life required, and if Mother is harmed, no mercy will be given, and coordinates acknowledged, and 1 representative may board to negotiate, but any act of violence will result in total destruction." He looked at Maya and said, "That does not sound like peace, Lieutenant. That sounds like a threat." Maya argued, "It is a chance for peace, which is more than we had before I sent the message." Stevens was quiet for a moment and then said, "Against my better judgment, I am bringing you to the command center. When they Rive Maya blinked in surprise, the captain explained. The alien queen asked for you specifically, and her exact words were, "The young one with kind eyes must be present, or I will not cooperate." He continued, "I do not know what you said to her, Brooks, but she trusts you, and that has to be worth something. Even if it gets us all killed in the end 6 hours later." Maya stood on the command deck, still wearing restraints on her wrists, with armed guards on both sides of Hertha. The main viewing screen showed the approaching fleet, and there were 12 ships. Of incredible beauty, all flowing curves and crystal that looked both lovely and deadly, the Queen stood next to Captain Stevens and the dragon. Thraxus was at her side, wearing a muzzle and chains, but his eyes burned with rage that threatened to explodescereth. The Queen looked remarkably calm for someone whose people were about to attack. She said quietly, "My daughter flagship is the larger ship in the center called the Starweaver, and she will send a representative first," the Queen continued. "It will likely be her war chief named Kalen, and I must warn you, he will not trust any of you," Stevens muttered under his breath. "I cannot imagine why he would not trust USA's small transport shuttle separated from the Starweaver and approached slowly. While every weapon on the station tracked its movement, the shuttle docked, and security cameras showed a single figure stepping out, though. Alien was tall and wearing armor with the same glowing silver skin as the Queen, but marked with intricate tattoos that seemed to pulse with light. He carried no visible weapons, but moved like violence barely held in check. Entered the command deck, and the temperature seemed to drop. His purple eyes swept across all the humans with contempt until he saw the Queen. He immediately dropped to one knee and said, "My Queen, are you harmed?" In any Wazerlith voice was gentle as she said, "I am well, old friend, and now, please rise, because we have much to dis." Caskellen stood, and his gaze fell on the muzzled dragon in his hand, moved toward his side, not to grab a weapon, but as if stopping himself, he said, "The dragon Sorlith." Quickly interrupted and said, "He is bound for their safety, not for ours, and Thraxus understands this. Don't you, beloved?" The dragon made a deep rumbling sound in his chest, but remained still. Kellen. Attention shifted to Maya, and he said, "You sent the message?" Maya answered, "Yes, I did." The alien asked, "Why would you do that?" Maya chose her words carefully and said, "Because 17 people died in a misunderstanding, and I do not want thousands more to die in a war that nobody really wants." She continued, "Because your Queen asked me to help save lives, both yours and ours." Something changed in Kalen's expression, and he asked, "Do you believe what our Queen told you?" Maya said, "I believe the truth, and both your people and mine deserve to hear it." Kellen studied her for a long moment, then turned to Stevens and said, "I am authorized to negotiate terms. But first I need proof that my Queen has not been tortured or forced to say things against her." "Will he?" commanded. "Remove her restraints and remove the dragon." Change Agent Cole started to protest, but Stevens raised his hand to silence her. Stevens ordered his guards to do it the moment the muzzle came off Thraxus. He lunged forward, but not at the humans. Instead, he pressed his massive head against the Queen's chest, and she wrapped her arms around him, whispering in her own musical language. The negotiation lasted for 3 long hours, and Kalen proved to be sharp and relentless in his questions and demands. But slowly and grudgingly, a framework for peace began to take shape between the two sides. Salen said, "Human forces must withdraw completely from 3 contested star systems that, according to ancient maps, had belonged to his people for thousands of years. Exchange the alien fleet would leave peacefully. Without attacking the station, a joint investigation team would be formed, with representatives from both humans and aliens, to look into who started the violence, and most importantly, the Queen would be released." Immediately, a Jan Cole voice cut through the discussion like a knife, and she said, "Absolutely not, and the alien is a war criminal who must face justice." A Sequelin voice turned to ice, and he said, "Your people fired first without any warning or provocation, and we have censor recordings and witness testimony." He continued, "Your admiral gave an illegal order to attack, and 17 of my kind died for no reason. Finished. If anyone here's a war criminal, it is your admiral." Burke, not our Queen. Stevens spoke quickly before Cole could make things worse and said, "We will submit all evidence to the joint investigation. Team, but the queen must go free, he added. That is not negotiable if you truly want peace between our people. Skellen looked at the queen and she gave a small nod of approval. He said, agreed to your terms, but the young soldier who sent the message must come with us. Every human in the command center went rigid with tensions, said flatly, absolutely not, that is not acceptably. Cologne explained. She committed what your people call treason in order to prevent bloodshed, and your government will execute her for. I've continued. We offer asylum and sanctuary, and she will be treated with honor among my people as a bridge. Builder Maya's heart raced in her chest because she had not expected this, and all the queen spoke softly and said, it is her choice to make, Kalen, and not yours or ours to decide for her. All eyes in the room turned to look at Maya. She thought about Earth and her home and her family that she might never see again. She thought about the life she had built in military service that was now destroyed. Then she thought about the classified files she had read, showing all the lies. She thought about 17 people who died because someone decided aliens could not be trusted before even trying to talk. Maya lifted her chin and said, I will go with them, but I want something in return for my service. Kalen raised one eyebrow and said, you are in no position to make demands or negotiate. Maya replied, I want to be part of the joint investigation team, because someone needs to make sure both sides hear the complete truth, she continued. And I want access to your historical records so humans and your people can learn to understand each other properly. For the first time, Kalen smiled, and it was the smile of a warrior who had found a worthy opponent. He said, done. And we accept your terms. The formal agreement was signed within the hour using both human, digital signatures, and the alien method of quantum encryption. Admiral Burke would face trial for his actions. 3 contested star systems would be returned to the Ethel Collective, which was the proper name for the Queen. People, a permanent embassy would be established on neutral ground, and Maya Brooks, formerly Lieutenant of Earth Defense, would serve as humanity's first official liaison to an alien civilization. As the alien shuttle prepared to depart, Captain Stevens pulled Maya aside. He looked tired and old, but there was respect in his eyes when he spoke. You did something today that I could not do, he said quietly. Stevens continued, you risked everything for peace when everyone else, including me, was ready for war. Maya said, I just did not want more people to die. Siri, no, Stevens replied, and that is why you will be better at this job than any of you. Held out his hand and Maya shook it firmly. The captain added, for what it is worth, I will testify on your behalf if they ever let you come home. Maya smiled sadly and said, thank you, sir, but I do not think I will be coming home. Stevens nodded slowly and said, maybe not, but you are giving humanity something more valuable than one soldier. He finished, you are giving us a future where we do not have to fight everyone we meet in space. Maya boarded the alien shuttle with the Queen and Thraxis, and Kalina. As the ship pulled away from the station, she looked back at Earth through the viewport agent. Cole was already filing reports and demanding investigations. Captain Stevens stood on the command deck watching her leave on somewhere out there. Admiral Burke sat in a cell waiting for his trial. The shuttle docked with the Starweaver, and Maya stepped into a world unlike anything she had. Imagine the ship interior was all flowing organic shapes and surfaces that seemed to glow from within. Crew members stopped to stare at the human walking among them, and some showed curiosity while others showed clear hostility. Young alien woman approached, and she had the same silver skin and purple eyes as the Queen, but her face was harder and colder. This is my daughter Liraleth, the Queen said, by way of introduction. The young commander studied Maya with an expression that mixed suspicion and barely controlled anger. You are the human who sent the message, Liraleth said, and her voice carried an edge. Like broken glass, Maya nodded and said, yes, I am Liraleth. Moved closer and said, my father died when humans attacked our peaceful delegation without warning. She continued, he went to them with open hands and they answered with weapons. Fire. Maya met her gaze steadily and said, I read the reports, and I know what Admiral Burke did, and it was wrong. She added, I cannot bring your father back, but I can help make sure it never happens again. Liraleth stared at her for a long moment and then turned sharply and walked away. The Queen placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder and said she will come around into Mesrelith. Continued, my daughter has much anger inside her, But she also has her father's sense of justice. Maya asked, "How long will it take?" For her to trust Mitha, Queen smiled and said, "Perhaps a very long time, but you have already proven yourself willing to sacrifice everything for peace," added. "That is worth more than trust. And it is the foundation on which trust can be built over." The next few days, Maya learned about the Ethel Collective and their long history. She met with scholars who taught her about the void accords and the careful balance of power they maintained. She studied star maps, showing territories that humans had unknowingly invaded. She learned that Thraxus was not just a pet, but a sentient being, with intelligence equal to any human. The dragon could not speak in human languages, but he communicated through a form of telepathic emotion, sharing when Maya finally opened her mind to him. She felt his grief over the queen husband death and his fury at being caged, but she also felt his hope that maybe humans and his people could find. Pasan, the fifth day, Lireleth summoned Maya to her private quarters. Young Commander sat surrounded by holographic displays showing battle formations and tactical analysis. She dismissed the displays when Maya entered and gestured for her to sit. "I dab and studying you," the commander said bluntly. She continued, "I have watched recordings of your actions and read reports about your background." Lireleth asked, "Why did you betray your own people?" For as Maya thought carefully before answering and said, "I did not betray my people," she explained, "I saved them from a war built on lies, and I believe humans can be better than what Admiral Burke showed you." Maya continued, "We can learn and grow and change, and we can choose peace if given the chance." Lireleth was silent for a long time, and then she said, "My father believed the same thing," she added. "He said, humans were young and made mistakes, but they had potential for greatness." Commander voice cracked slightly as she finished. "I wanted to prove him wrong and burn every human world to ash in revenge." Maya said, "I understand your anger." Lireleth snapped, "You understand nothing about losing someone you love. Too senseless violence." Maya replied quietly, "You are right, and I do not understand that pain, but I do understand that more killing will not bring your father back." She said, "It will only create more people like you who have lost someone they love." Lireleth looked at Maya with eyes that held tears she refused to let fall. Finally, she said, "I will work with you on this investigation, but if I find evidence that humans cannot be trusted, then I will resume my plans for war." Maya nodded and said, "That is fair, and I would not ask for more than that." As Maya left the commander quarters, she realized the hard work was only beginning. Peace was not signed in one agreement. Had to be built slowly and carefully, like constructing a bridge between two cliffs over a bottomless chasm. One wrong step and everything would collapse, but for the first time in weeks, Maya felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt hope. 3 months passed since Maya left the station called Sentinel, and in that time the galaxy changed in ways nobody had predicted. The joint investigation concluded exactly what Maya had discovered in those classified files Admiral Burke had ordered. The first attack without provocation, and he was found guilty of war crimes and stripped of all rank and honors. The 3 contested star systems were officially returned to the Ethel Collective with formal apologies from Earth government. Human colonies in those areas were given time to relocate peacefully, with assistance from the alien people they had unknowingly displaced. A treaty was signed that Maya helped write every word of, with input from both sides. It was fragile and imperfect, and tested daily by people on both sides who wanted war, but it was holding. Maya stood in the observation room of the Starweaver, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance as the ship traveled toward the archive world. She had given up everything for this moment, in her citizenship, and her commission, and her home letters from her family had stopped coming after the 2nd month. When they understood she was never coming back, but something inside her felt more complete than it ever had before. "You are broadcasting your emotions again," the Queen said, as she entered the room with Thraxus. Walking beside her, Maya smiled and asked, "What am I feeling right now?" Lireleth tilted her head in that characteristic way and said, "Regret and uncertainty, but also hope burning bright." The Queen continued, "You wonder if you made the right choice, giving up your old life." Maya admitted, "Yes, I wondered that." Samata Messeroth moved to stand beside her at the viewport, and said, 3 months ago, our two peoples stood on the edge of a war that would have consumed entire solar systems. She gestured to the stars beyond and continued, now we share scientific knowledge and plan cultural exchanges, and children on both sides will grow up knowing we chose Piss the Queen. Placed a hand on Maya's shoulder and said, that happened because you sent one message when everyone told you not to. Maya said quietly, it was just one message to prevent killing. Zarelith replied, choosing truth over loyalty and understanding over fear is never just anything, she added. It is the hardest thing anyone can do, and the most important. The door opened, and Lireleth entered wearing the formal robes of her position as Commander Mother. We are approaching the archive world, she said, and Maya requested access has been approved by the Council of Keepers. Thank you, daughter, Sorella said warmly. The young commander had slowly warmed to Maya. Over the past months, though, she still maintained a careful distance. Alaril asked, how are your human language studies progressing? The commander made a face and said, your language has 17 different words for approximately, and they all mean slightly different things, she added. It is inefficient and confusing. Maya laughed and said, welcome to English, and wait until you learn about irregular verbs. Lireleth almost smiled before catching herself and leaving the room as the door closed. Soralis said, my daughter likes you more than she wants to admit. The queen continued, she told me yesterday that you remind her of her father and your stubborn insistence on doing what is right, regardless of cost. Maya felt honored by the comparison and said, I wish I could have met him. Zorlith's voice grew soft with memory and said, he would have liked you very much. Thraxus moved closer to Maya and lowered his massive head to her level. She had learned not to fear the dragon over these months. He was ancient and intelligent and surprisingly gentle when not threatened or protecting the queen. Maya reached out and stroked the scales along his snout, and the dragon rumbled with contentment. He likes you, the queen observed, and that is rare, because Thraxus does not trust easily. Maya said, neither do I anymore, but I am learning how. The Starweaver began its descent toward a world that took Maya breath away, hung in the sky, supported by technology she could not begin to understand. Archives stretched beyond the horizon, containing knowledge from thousands of years of civilization. This was where Maya would spend the next year, studying and learning the truth about the galaxy humanity had stumbled into so blindly. She would build bridges between species that had nearly destroyed each other over misunderstanding and fear. It was not the life she had planned when she joined Earth's defense. She had expected to be a soldier defending humanity from threats. Instead, she had become something else entirely, a bridge between worlds, a keeper of truth, a builder instead of a fighter. Saralith seemed to read her thoughts and asked, what are you thinking about, child? Maya answered honestly, I joined the military to protect people. She continued, but I spent most of my training learning how to fight and destroy. Maya finished, maybe it is time I learned how to build and create. Instead, the queen smiled with genuine warmth and said, that is the wisest thing. I have heard you, Saith. The ship landed softly on a platform made of crystal that hummed with energies. Callers waited to greet them, and they wore robes of many colors, representing different fields of study. An elderly alien with skin that had faded to pale blue approached the queen and bowed deeply. Welcome back, Saralith, he said, and his voice creaked with age. He turned to Maya, and his eyes widened with curiosity, and said, so this is the human who chose peace over war. Maya bowed respectfully and said, I am just someone who did not want people to die for Lees. The scholar laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes, and he said, just someone who risked execution to save both her people and ours. He gestured toward the nearest archive building and said, come and let me show you the history. You are now part of Oz. They walked. Maya noticed other scholars stopping to stare. Some looked curious, while others seemed hostile. One young alien actually spat on the ground as she passed. The elderly scholar noticed and said quietly, you must understand that many of my people lost loved ones in the attacks. He continued, they see you as representative of those who killed their families. Maya asked, then why do they let me here? Because the queen commanded it, the scholar replied, And because some of us understand that building peace requires uncomfortable choices, he added, you are the first human too. Ever walk in these archives, and what you learn here will shape the future of your entire species. The weight of that responsibility settled on Maya. Shoulders inside the archive, the air smelled of old paper and ozone, and something sweet she could not identify. Holographic displays showed star maps and battle records, and cultural studies physical books bound in materials. She did not recognize lined shelves that seemed to go on forever. The scholar, whose name was Velcris, began showing her the history of the Void Accord. She learned about wars that had raged centuries ago before the treaty brought PCE, saw records of species that had destroyed themselves through endless conflict. She understood why the Ethel Collective had reacted so strongly to human expansion. Humans were following the same pattern as a dozen extinct civilizations before them. That evening, Maya sat alone in quarters assigned to her and wrote a message to Captain Stephen Shea. Told him everything she was learning. Shea explained why the aliens had been so afraid of human expansion. She asked him to share this information with Earth government. His reply came 2 days later, and it was brief message received and being forwarded to civilian leadership and military. Is not happy, but cannot ignore evidence. Stevens wrote, stay safe out there, Brooks, and you are doing important work. Maya smiled at the simple words of encouragement. Over the following weeks, she fell into a routine of study and translation work. She helped create educational materials that would teach humans about the Ethel Collective and their history. She worked with Lirolith on the joint investigation, compiling evidence and testimony, and slowly, almost without noticing, she began to feel at home. One night, a month after arriving at the archive world, Maya stood on a balcony watching 3 moons rise over alien landscape. Thraxus landed beside her with a powerful beat of his wings, and the dragon had been flying free for hours. He projected feelings of joy and freedom directly into her mind. Maya smiled and sent back feelings of contentment. Queen joined them and said, you have changed since we first met, child. She continued, that frightened young soldier who guarded my cell is gone. Maya asked, is that a bad thing? Not at all, Saralith replied. It means you are becoming who you were always meant to be. She added, you are becoming a bridge between worlds, and there is no greater purpose than that. Maya looked up at the unfamiliar stars and said, I used to dream about exploring space and finding adventure. She laughed softly and continued, I never imagined it would be like this. Queen asked, would you choose differently if you could go back? Maya thought about everything she had lost and everything she had gained. She thought about the war that never happened and the lives that were saved. She thought about the future she was helping to build. Finally, she answered, no, I would choose the same path. Soralith squeezed her shoulder gently and said, then you have found your truth below them. The archive world glowed with lights from 1,000 different facilities above. Them ships from 12 different species moved through orbital lanes in peaceful commerce somewhere far away. Earth continued its slow rotation, carrying billions of people who did not yet understand how close they had come to destruction. But they would learn. Maya would make sure of it, not through war or conquest, but through understanding and patience and the slow, careful work of building trust. It would take years, maybe decades, but for the first time in human history, they had a real chance at joining the galactic community as equals.